Welcome back, Sports Degenerates Show faithful. I am your host, Frank Wible. Little bit of a different look today. I'm wearing sunglasses, and the reason why is if I were to take these off and look into the camera, as you see, my eyes are all blood red. Had LASIK about a week ago, still a little bloodshot, so I look crazy, and I can't stare in the lights, or it will give me a massive headache. So, gonna have to wear sunglasses for this episode. Quick little touch up. It's gonna be an Eagles episode. I am a often angry Eagles fan, so it's going to be an Eagles episode. We got Eagles news in, but I think I speak for a large portion of Eagles fans when I say nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo, Philadelphia supporting you. You guys are crazy like Philadelphians. We love you guys. Really, Buffalo. I hope you kill it. Kind of pulling for Buffalo versus the Packers, but I'd love to see Buffalo win the Super Bowl. Alright, I wanted to take a day, kind of decompress. Philadelphia Eagles have fired Super Bowl winning head coach Doug Pederson. There's a lot of talking heads in the media now, especially at big conglomerates, ESPN and such that are, how could they fire Doug Pederson? Yeah, blah blah blah. He's just being a scapegoat, and in a way he is. Howie Roseman should have been shown the door as well, and I would agree with that. But while Doug Pederson won a Super Bowl here in Philadelphia, and we will forever be thankful of that, he will always be a legend in Philadelphia, it was time for him to go. Doug Pederson, from a Philadelphian's perspective, from somebody inside the city, I can tell you, Doug Pederson, he was having a little bit of an issue here. So the problem Doug was having was, since the Super Bowl year, Frank Reich gets promoted. And I made a video about this, in my support of Carson Wentz. And Frank Reich got taken by the Indianapolis Colts to be their head coach. And you saw kind of just constant hires from within, hire from within. And it just wasn't getting any better. Doug Pederson has been controlling the plays in Philadelphia really the whole time, but with Reich, who is an experienced offensive coordinator, leaving, it caused an issue. So, rumor comes out Doug Pederson was tired of being told what to do. People have kind of run with it. And my opinion, for what it's worth, is simple. Is Doug Pederson was ready to hire and promote Press Taylor, who was the quarterback's coach that just got hired last year. He was ready to promote him to offensive coordinator. The issue is Press Taylor's never been an offensive coordinator. And quite frankly, he's a quarterback's coach where your franchise quarterback had his worst numbers of his career. So all it is it's kind of a lateral move where Doug Pederson stays in power. Doug Pederson was not going to give up play calling for anybody. It's why they couldn't land Graham Harrell last year for their offensive coordinator position. It was an issue. For Doug, here was his biggest problem. Last year, your offense was horrible. He wanted to keep his assistants. He had come out in the media last year at the end of the season and said all of his assistants would say. However, his quarterback coach and his offensive coordinator were both fired. Mike Groh and Carson Walsh, both gone. Out, fired. Quarterback's offensive coordinator and wide receivers coach, both gone, out of here. So, the issue then becomes, okay, your offense has struggled. What bright mind are you going to bring in to innovate the offense? Doug promoted himself to offensive coordinator. If your offense is struggling and you promote yourself to offensive coordinator, all that's telling me is you're shouldering the blame if something goes wrong. Well, this year, the wheels fell off. And I don't think Jeffrey Lurie wanted to get rid of Doug. But it came down to, okay, your defensive coordinator in Jim Schwartz is, taking a year off and possibly retired. Your offensive coordinator, well, you didn't have one, but now you need to hire one. Well, he wanted to hire from within for both the defense and offensive coordinators. The issue is you're 4-11-1. You better do something else, dude, because it's not working. And they both kind of hit an impasse. Doug went, well, I guess I'll just go somewhere else. And the Eagles said, fine. So, the long and short of it is, yeah, that was the end for Doug Pederson. Old Dougie P just it wasn't working anymore. He needed to change. And it's shockingly similar to how Andy Reid's last days in Philadelphia went. You needed a defensive coordinator? I'll promote your offensive line coach to defensive coordinator. Like, what? Makes no sense. So, with that being said, the Eagles have a head coaching opening. There's a lot of teams with head coach openings. And Philadelphia, normally when it opens up, is one of the more desirable places. And I think they are in certain aspects. Like, I've seen some that are like, oh, well, I mean, you'd rather go to Houston than Philadelphia. No, you wouldn't. Houston's about to trade their franchise quarterback and they have no draft picks. You're not going there. Philadelphia's got one major issue, which I don't think is going to be an issue, and that is Carson Wentz. I think Carson Wentz remains your starter, as well as, there was reports Doug's job is safe. Then all of a sudden Carson wants to be traded. Then all of a sudden Doug's job's not safe anymore. I think it's pretty clear now Jeffrey Lurie wants the Eagles to build with Carson Wentz, that he believes in Carson and believes that just if something went wrong, it was not on the quarterback. So there's a list. There's odds and ends and who's going to be who's going to be the head coach, who you want to be the head coach. I've got a top 5. And for my top 5, I'm kind of eliminating some guys. There's some people that the Eagles have reached out to. Some they haven't, but some they've reached out to, and there's reports they've reached out to, and it's like, oh, could they be? That doesn't necessarily mean they're coming here. So there's some of these guys I'm just going to eliminate off the bat. Number 1 is Eric Bieniemy. I don't think Eric Bieniemy comes here. He has an offensive pedigree. He's going to go to the best possible place he can go. He is going to be the number 1 guy. He's going to go to the Chargers. I think the Chargers are without a doubt going to bring him in. A guy in the division. He knows you pick up where they left off with Justin Herbert. That's already a talented team. That's a team he definitely looks at and goes, I've got the young pieces there to win. So I think Eric Bieniemy goes to the Chargers. I don't even think the Eagles are going to have a shot at him, and that's okay. I'm not super worried about that. Another one is Lincoln Riley. Lincoln Riley's name is going to be thrown out here forever to be the head coach anywhere. Lincoln Riley's not going anywhere. He's not leaving Norman, Oklahoma. There's no way. That dude gets paid a metric ton just to win the Big 12 every year. Why would you leave that? That's one of those deals where it's like he's a young guy. He could always change his mind later on. But I just don't see that happening. So those are 2 guys that are getting thrown out there that I think you just get rid of. As well as like guys like Bill Cowher every year comes out. His name floats around. Like, now, Bill Cowher makes $4 million sitting at a desk. He's not coming out of retirement. So my top 5 list is a little bit different. So some names, no way you would think. Some names, yeah, probably. Number 5 is a Penn State guy just like myself, Joe Brady. Joe Brady was a Penn State grad, a grad coach on, or grad assistant on James Franklin's staff under Joe Moorhead. He left, went to New Orleans to help under Sean Payton, went back, was the passing game coordinator at LSU with that dynamic offense, and then has been the Panthers offensive coordinator this year. Kind of a meteoric rise for him. Obviously no head coaching experience, but a guy that with innovative offense you would expect could explode an offense. The drawback is he is insanely young. He is 31 years old. And while I wouldn't be against the hire, I would understand the trepidation on it, the pullback. I don't know if anybody actually goes after Joe Brady yet, just being that young. I mean, I know it's not unheard of. The Packers did it with Matt LaFleur. Go after a young coach and see what he can do. Joe Brady is stupid young. So I would understand why they wouldn't. However, the positive of this is you have a young coach who has an innovative offense that has, a passing game ready to go. A lot of the times, in my opinion, what you see with young coaches is in both college and in the NFL, and even in basketball, is they'll hire veteran coaches and former head coaches as their assistants. And that's exactly what the Eagles need. They need head coaches to be their assistants. Look at Alabama. Everybody, they just have Power 5 coaches be their assistants now. But for Philadelphia, I think it would be the same thing. Joe Brady, I would like to see hire former NFL head coaches, kind of learn off them as he goes, but also innovate the offense. However, I don't see that happening. It would be nice. Number 4 is a name that they have requested to interview is Robert Saleh, the 49ers defensive coordinator. This is the only defensive guy on the list, and there's 2 reasons for this. One, Jeffrey Lurie has now hired 4 coaches since he's owned the Philadelphia Eagles. Ray Rhodes, Andy Reid, Chip Kelly, Doug Pederson. Every single one of them is an offensive guy. Jeffrey Lurie has an idea of what he wants, and it's going to be an offensive guy, and I'm not against it. However, a defensive guy tends to bring a little bit more energy, a little bit more fire, and works out well, and would work out well with this team. The Eagles, who had a defensive identity for most of my childhood in the early 2000s growing up with Jim Johnson's defense, have kind of lost that. And under Chip Kelly, the defense was horrible. Now the defense is But you would bring in a guy who could build a defense and help kind of restore that idea in Philadelphia. The issue I have with this is defensive coordinators being promoted to head coaches in the past couple years. Now, you could say Belichick and Saban and stuff like that, fine. But in the past few years, if you look, defensive coordinators that have been promoted to head coaches in the NFL, not a great track record. They're struggling. Dan Quinn, the former Atlanta coach, Gus Bradley, the former Jacksonville coach, there's just something about it. And I think with the NFL moving in an offensive kind of mindset, it's hard to build defense first. You can always have a good defense, but it's kind of like have a great offense and an average defense and you'll make it. So, Robert Saleh, I like his passion. I like his fire. But, I think he would make a hell of a coach in Philadelphia. But it's just not, it's not the Jeffrey Lurie pick, if I would say that. Nor also a guy that seems to like to hire with ties to the area. Hired Chip Kelly, didn't work. I think he likes the in-close guys. Number 3 is one that, and this is, I have Carson Wentz in mind, especially for these next 2 picks. Number 3 is Arthur Smith, the offensive coordinator of the Tennessee Titans. The rebuild of Ryan Tannehill's career has been nothing short of extraordinary. Carson, I think, is, especially at his best, is Ryan Tannehill turned up to 11. I mean, he is way better than Tannehill when playing the way he should and when the offense flows around him. The other thing is, what we've, as Philadelphians, have learned, almost felt like a lifetime under Andy Reid, Chip Kelly for a blip, and then Doug Pederson, is run the ball. We don't run here in Philadelphia. We are a cold weather city. It rains a lot. It's windy a lot in South Philly at Lincoln Financial Field. We don't run. And that kills us. We hate it. We would like to run the ball. Arthur Smith coming from Tennessee would run the ball. That is a run-first offense. That is an old-fashioned build the pass off the run offense. And that is a great thing to have. Would really enjoy seeing it. With Arthur Smith, he is, to me, what would be the Jeffrey Lurie hire. The only difference is he just doesn't have ties to Philadelphia, which is fine. But that would be one that I think would really work. I think Arthur Smith could very well get a job somewhere this year. I think he works well with Tennessee. Speaking of Tennessee, defensive coordinator turned head coach Mike Vrabel, doing a good job. But that's the idea. You need an offense that works that way. That heavy run, smash mouth run, throw when you need to offense. And I think if you were to change the quarterback in Tennessee while Tannehill is playing better, I think he's not going to be what they need. Whereas if you can return Carson to that, elite level that he was playing at, that's a guy that could run your team. That's a guy that could run your offense, and you could win on that. You could win on that foundation. So, Arthur Smith, Tennessee Titans offensive coordinator, number 3. Number 2, Brian Daboll, the Bills offensive coordinator. When Josh Allen was getting drafted, loved him. Big country boy, can throw a football over them mountains. He becoming the offensive coordinator in Buffalo helped Josh Allen. Josh Allen, to me, when he came out in the draft and people had made the comparison, was Carson Wentz. It's, small school, big rifle of an arm, kind of a gunslinger, really mobile. I think Josh Allen's more mobile than Carson, and really more mobile than most people thought, but really worked well with him. And Daboll's kind of turned down that gunslinger mentality of Josh Allen, but allows him to explore it a little bit. And I think that's where Carson Wentz fell apart this year. Is earlier in the season, he was going full Brett Favre. He was gunslinging and throwing interceptions left and right. He didn't have receivers getting open, no O-line, and he was just letting it rip. With Daboll, it allows him to be that gunslinger, but limited. And with Carson, it was he no longer wanted to turn the ball over, so he took away what that was, that ability to take risks. You need to do it. That is what it makes a great NFL quarterback. You have to make risks. Not everybody's going to be wide open, and you saw that a lot with Carson. A lot of the, double pump, wanting to get rid of it, but didn't actually get rid of it. And that's what you run into with Daboll. He will get a hold of Carson and say, no, listen, this is what we're going to do. We're going to create a pass offense that gets you out moving again, gets you throwing, lets you use that big arm, and it works. Also, while Daboll does not have ties to Philadelphia, Buffalo and Philadelphia, in my opinion, are very similar. Very kind of crazed fan bases that expect the best from their team. And with Buffalo still winning, I think he is just increasing his stock ever rising. And then number one is kind of a guy that outside the city, I don't think many people are thinking of. Inside the city, he's kind of like a grassroots favorite. This is a guy that has been interviewed now, going to be his third time interviewed to be the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, and I sadly to say it was probably just to fulfill the Rooney Rule, but Jeffrey Lurie loves him, and that is current assistant head coach and running backs coach and former Eagle running back Deuce Staley. Deuce Staley is a guy that's loved by Philadelphians, and he's been on the staff since Andy Reid. He was Andy Reid's running back. He was an assistant running backs coach under Andy Reid. Andy Reid got fired, and before Chip Kelly got hired, Jeffrey Lurie interviewed Deuce Staley, hired Deuce Staley as his running back coach. Okay? Chip Kelly gets fired. Again, Jeffrey Lurie interviews Deuce Staley, keeps him on as running back coach, brings in Doug Pederson, but Deuce stays your running back coach. He's had a more prominent role now in the organization in the coming times, and a guy that a lot of people thought should have been promoted to offensive coordinator. Doug was simply not having it. He's going to get interviewed again. I don't think it's for the Rooney Rule obligation. I believe Lurie kept him on for a reason. I believe Jeffrey Lurie saw Deuce Staley as a future head coach, and I believe he is. Besides just having the ties to Philadelphia, if you look at Deuce Staley, he's played under Andy Reid, played under Bill Cowher, and won a Super Bowl under Bill Cowher. Coached under Andy, coached under Chip, which, Chip is Chip, but there's still good things that came out of that offense. Coached under Doug and won a Super Bowl under Doug. He's also a player's guy that has the sternness to get on his players, but is close enough with them that he can be what you would consider a player's coach. The other thing I like about him is he's a running back. He will run the ball. Absolutely, Deuce Staley will run the ball. And as I said, there's this growing movement to make him the head coach. There's another dark horse, Mike Kafka, the former quarterback for the Eagles. I don't believe he's going to be there either. He'll be the Chiefs offensive coordinator next year, then get a job. But you have Deuce Staley. Like I said, Deuce Staley I don't think is getting looks anywhere else. And that could be saying something, that could not. But I believe if another city or another team came in and said, hey, we want Deuce Staley, Jeffrey Lurie would hire him in a heartbeat. And I think with Philadelphia, while obviously the fans don't have much say, when they hired Doug, nobody really wanted him. We love him for winning us a Super Bowl, but nobody really wanted Doug. He wasn't the sexy hire that year. Deuce Staley is an interesting one where you're going to get the fan base's support off the bat. He's not going to have to fight. You're in a rebuilding era where you have to fix your offense and figure out what you're doing. Well, there you go. You start with a guy like Deuce who has the fans' patience, A guy like Arthur Smith, Tennessee's offensive coordinator, he doesn't have, you're starting off, some places they hire a head coach and it's immediate love. Like, yeah, he's going to be the one to save us. And then he has to prove them wrong and suck. In Philadelphia, it's the other way around. You're hired and it's immediate trepidation. It's immediate like, yeah, but nah, I hate that guy. And it just doesn't work. With Deuce, you don't have that. Deuce Staley comes in and he's Philadelphia. He is your guy. You love him. Philadelphians love him. He's just a big bruiser. But he seems to love coaching. And that's what I like. And just as Joe Brady with Deuce, I think you would have a guy who is more than willing to split. Like, okay, I don't need it. I need a good offensive coordinator. I need a good defensive coordinator. I need guys to help. And I believe he's another guy that would work well with Carson. With Deuce Staley especially. I didn't do it for all of them, but since Deuce is my main guy that I want to get hired, there's some assistants I'd like to see come into Philadelphia as well. The first one is Jim Caldwell. Jim Caldwell, the former head coach of the Detroit Lions, who they fired in favor of Matt Patricia. That was stupid. Caldwell as a head coach is to me. He's better than Matt Patricia, but Caldwell to me will always be an average head coach. However, an exceptional offensive coordinator. Caldwell is another one who worked wonders with Matt Stafford, wonders with Peyton Manning, and is another one like Brian DeBall who'll work with Carson in, you can be the gunslinger. You can let it fly when it's necessary. But sometimes just hit that pass. Just hit that clean throw. Hit that clean throw. Hit that clean throw. That's all you need to do. I think Carson is going to be the guy that teams look for. Jalen Hurts to the end of the year proved he was not it. That's going to be the big thing, I think. With Jim Caldwell, he would take a guy like Carson, like he had with Matt Stafford, a quarterback that's kind of, lost his way a little bit, and immediately get him back on track and get him to the point where he can coach him up and be like, this is what I want to see you do. He's coached Peyton. He's coached Stafford. Would be a great guy to have in a room with Carson. A true offensive coordinator, not Mike Groh or Press Taylor. Defensive coordinator would be a guy who has some ties to the division. Chris Richard, former secondary coach in Dallas and former defensive coordinator in Seattle. He got let go of Seattle, but Seattle drafts like shit, so that's why he got let go at Seattle. Chris Richard, I've wanted for a while. I loved how he coached secondary with Dallas. He wasn't brought back after Jason Garrett got let go. Now Dallas is bringing in Dan Quinn to bring in that style of defense again. Richard, great with secondary, and that has been the Eagles' biggest issue. Their secondary has been coached wrong. They don't even turn to look for the ball anymore. It's been a nightmare. That, to me, is a guy that you would look at and go, yup, he's the one that we're going to fix. He's the one that can build this defense back up. Ooh, excuse me. He can build this defense back up. He can teach our secondary better. He can get everything right. He's another guy. He's younger. He's energetic. He's got a lot of promise. And he coached up Dallas' defense quite well. I mean, that's the thing. Dallas' defense was not bad when it was, him and Monty Kiffin. Now, I don't want Monty Kiffin, but Chris Richard, you learn the Seattle way. You leave, you go, the Robert Saleh way. You leave, you go under Monty Kiffin, you learn some things in zone defense, and you mesh, and you work with that. Last but not least, really to help Carson Wentz would be Josh McCown as quarterback coach. Josh McCown played most of the Eagles' playoff game, not this season, but last season. Was their COVID safety practice quarterback, but he got picked up off the practice squad and ended up going to Houston. Kind of a guy that Eagles fans wanted as a coach this past year. Obviously, he didn't get into coaching right away, but he was in talks with something with Philadelphia. He had a great rapport with Carson, and I think that would be an amazing move for him. It's a guy who Carson has a rapport with, but can coach him up in a, hey, this is what we got to do, kid. Like, this is what you need. This is what you got to fix. And that would be an ideal position for me. So, another player who has been under like 15 offenses and can lend an ear into the offensive room. So, my top 5 coaches. Joe Brady, Panthers offensive coordinator. Robert Saleh, 49ers defensive coordinator. Arthur Smith, Tennessee offensive coordinator. Brian DeBoll, Bills offensive coordinator. And finally, Philadelphia's own Deuce Staley. Make him your head coach. And with Deuce Staley, give me Jim Caldwell, Chris Richard, and Josh McCown as quarterback coach. I think you got a winning roster there, or winning coaching staff there that can really rebuild this franchise, get your quarterback right, get your team right, and you're ready to go. But I am Frank Wible. This is the Sports Degenerates Show. I might keep the glasses look. I kind of like the glasses look. My eyes aren't darting all over the place. I can just, like full John Cena. You can't see me. In probably a few weeks, definitely a few weeks, it'll start to, the channel will definitely start to pick up talking about the draft and stuff like that. I'm an Eagles fan. I want to see Devontae Smith, who just won a national championship last night, so he's kind of good. But we'll start talking about the draft probably after the Super Bowl. Right now, I'd like to see, like I said, Bills, Green Bay Super Bowl. I'd like to see the Bills win the Super Bowl, but not really going to talk too much about that. I'm going to really delve more into the draft process and each team's individual needs. I'll be able to kind of build it up. Might do a mock draft for every team. Might do a little research on teams, do a mock draft for them, see what happens, see how that goes. Might be biting off a little more than I can chew, but you never know. Could be a good idea. Definitely going to do about 18 mock drafts for the Eagles that Howie Roseman won't listen to because he'll draft somebody out of the Pac-12. But I like to get my hopes up anyway. But again, I am Frank Wible. This is the Sports Degenerates Show. If you like what you see, please like, comment, subscribe, comment. Hey, maybe you got somebody you want to see the Eagles hire. We're one of the other teams that needs a head coach. Who do you want to see go in there as their head coach? I'm interested to hear, especially not from ESPN. I'm interested to hear fans of other teams and what their opinions are on their teams. But lastly, this is the Sports Degenerate Show. Follow me on Instagram. And as always, thank you for stopping by.